to say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right. Thank you. Thank you once again for the co-creation of these interactions and the allowance of this transmission in this way at this time. We would like to begin this transmission by reminding you that it is titled Nature's Social Network. The idea being that there are a variety of ways that different elements, different expressions in nature communicate with one another, because you are all immersed in a web of energy and information. But there are very specific ways in which these connections in the energy web are expressed depending upon the expression of nature. First, we remind you that you do not exist in nature, you are nature. Your bodies are an expression of the nature of the reality that you have chosen to experience. We know that for some time, many individuals within humanity have, in the past, thought of themselves as being separate from nature, maybe living in it, maybe being surrounded by it, but not necessarily considering themselves to be of it. But you are. Your world has given you the ability to crystallize a physical form out of the elements of nature that exist in your reality at your vibratory level of energy, rendering that energy, crystallizing that energy into what you call the perception of matter. So you are absolutely an extension of nature on Earth. But in societies that exist on your planet who have forgotten that, not everyone, but many, then there is an important need to allow yourselves to begin to experience yourselves once again, as you did long ago, as expressions of nature. This would be the first step in being capable of perceiving and connecting in a conscious way to the web of information, the web of energy that connects you all, that connects all nature, all things, in your experience of reality. But we will begin by describing one of the ways, or two of the ways, or maybe three of the ways, we will see, that different expressions in nature have of expressing this connectivity and utilizing this connectivity in a variety of ways to support life, to support consciousness and its expressions in your reality. Let us begin with the trees. We have talked about the idea from time to time that trees, in a sense, are very much like antennae protruding upwards into the sky from the earth, and the way they are structured based on certain mathematical ratios, they are sensitive to many different kinds of higher level energies, and they can, like an antenna, receive those energies in the very fine tips of their branches and leaves, and transform and transmit and step down and allow that energy to be guided into the earth, to be used in a variety of ways, to be tapped into by whatever needs to tap into that energy at whatever frequency is relevant for the different life form that may choose to tap into that energy and utilize that connective energy web. But more than that, deep underground, in the roots of trees and plants, there is another expression of this connective network, this social network. In any given group of trees, you will find in these forests that the roots of the trees, in whatever way they may choose to spread out, are also connected to what has been termed in your language the mycelial network. The mycelial network is a type of growth of fungal filaments that attach to the roots and go from one tree to another, to another, to another, to another, throughout the grove, throughout the forest. So in a forest where the trees are dense, all the trees are connected underground by their roots through this fungal mycelial network. Now, this network of filaments that connect all these roots are not only for the purpose of transmitting energy, are not only for the purpose of transmitting information, but they provide a true demonstration of the intelligence inherent in all life forms on your planet, whether you think they are necessarily intelligent or not. Not only can information and energy be transmitted through the mycelial network in much the same way that your neural net in your brains transmit impulses, electrical impulses, between all the different neurons, this mycelial network can transmit those kinds of impulses, but also serves many other functions. The mycelial network can actually transmit water from one tree to another where water may be lacking. So the trees that are receiving more water will know through the information of the mycelial network which trees may not be receiving enough water, and they will actually intentionally send more water through the mycelial network to the trees that require it. They will send food and nutrients through the mycelial network as well to the trees that require it. This is a true transport system underground for the trees of a forest. And there is vast amount of information, vast amount of exchange going on under your feet when you walk through a forest, like an underground subway network that you may not even have been aware of going on just a few feet underground, right under your feet. All this talk, all this communication, foodstuffs, water, impulses back and forth, it's very busy going on under there. It's its own kind of city. Now, sometimes you can tell where these mycelial networks might be because one of the offshoots of the fungal filaments might be that at a certain point, mushrooms and other fungal forms will come up through the ground, showing you exactly where some of these mycelial networks may have blossomed into another expression and form of life that then aids and assists and adds to the overall communication web going on in that forest. One of the things that has come down through stories and legends on your planet is the idea of what you call fairy rings, which are usually described as the idea of mushrooms in a circle forming a fairy ring, as you call it, to which different forms of nature spirits and elementals may be attracted, or you may be able, if you are able to perceive them, find them gathering in those areas. This is because it is their form of connecting to the mycelial network. They actually can use that ring, and it grows in a ring for the purpose of actually allowing other beings of different frequencies to tap into that network when they need to. In a sense, you could say, euphemistically, the fairy rings of different kinds of mushrooms that crop up from the mycelial network underground so that there can be an interface with different kinds of nature spirits to that web of information, are almost, in a sense, kind of like their Stonehenge. You understand? So it forms that circle to capture that energy, to transmit that energy in a very efficient way. It forms a kind of energy web lens by being in a circular form, and that helps aid and assist in the amplification of the energy, of the information, and it also transmits it to the particular vibration needed for the elementals and the nature spirits to be able to access that information based on their nature. Now, there are other forms of communication and social networks in nature. When you're talking about the idea of the elements themselves, not elementals, but the elements themselves, what you would call the hard minerals, what you would call rocks, what you would call boulders, what you would call foothills, what you would call mountains. There is another system that is concurrent with what we are describing that uses the energy web in a different way. One thing that only very few of your scientists have begun to realize and are beginning to investigate is that there is what we might term a deep resonance field that exists that is, generally speaking, on a vibratory level that is below your ability to sense. If you are sensitive enough, you can feel it, you can tap into it, but generally speaking, it is not always audible to you. It is a very deep, thrumming, vibrating, resonant energy, the deep energy resonance field that is part of the electromagnetic field of your planet that it issues, but it is tuned and pitched in such a way that it actually forms a communication network between all of the crystalline minerals and rocks and mountains on your planet. This is the vibratory level of the nature of that kind of consciousness, of mineral or crystalline consciousness. And it communicates readily in a variety of ways through that deep resonance field. Now, some of your scientists are also beginning to understand and realize that everything is made of consciousness. Everything is self-aware in its own way. It may not be self-aware in the way that you express it, but nevertheless, it is still a reflection. It knows itself as a reflection of all that is in its own way, in its own interpretation. And they are recognizing that consciousness is pervasive and permeates everything in creation. Very few cutting-edge quantum physicists are beginning to explore this. The term they have used for this is called panpsychism, or the idea that they are now beginning to express that there is a proto-consciousness field that exists everywhere, and out of which consciousness in its various forms of expression may arise. So the proto-consciousness field itself is another way that many beings throughout creation will form this sort of energy net and energy web. This is generally what is used by what you would call animals on your planet, humans on your planet, in a variety of ways. They tap into the idea of this consciousness field, and based on the configuration of the consciousness, in other words, what kind of a being it is, because the kind of being you are is a description of how you are energetically arranged as a kind of a matrix to filter this consciousness field through yourself and express it in the ways that are germane and relevant for the description of what you are, of who you are. So animals, humans, all that kind of life will utilize the consciousness field and will, through themselves, filter it in such a way as to create different frequencies, different vibrations that are given off that are specific to those particular types of animals, those particular types of beings. So this is what it means when you learn to talk cat, talk dog, talk fox, talk dolphin, talk any kind of animal, is picking up on the specific resonant frequency of the consciousness field that they are using, their particular wavelength, their particular, well, if you wish, radio station, to dial in yourself to those frequencies. Now, the idea of humanity, in a sense, not being in any way, shape, or form better than any of this, has itself, by definition, one interesting and unusual difference in all of this, and that is not that other animals can't do it if they need to, but the idea of humanity, of what you would call sentiency in your form, has the ability to actually, and is built into the ability to actually go up and down the range of these frequencies we are describing, so that you can tune in, so that you can, in a sense, funnel through you all the different wavelengths, all the different frequencies, all the different forms of communication and resonance, to express an amalgamation of these ideas, a kind of combination, a kind of synergy of all these ideas. You are the form on Earth that can process all of this into one large overall understanding and expression of holism on your planet, which is why you think of yourselves in many ways as the stewards of the earth, of the land, the humans, of the sea, the dolphins and the whales. So the dolphins and whales also have this ability to go through a range of frequencies very naturally to pick up on and tie together and link together and express synergistically the idea of many different kinds of forms of life and expressions on your planet. This is why, in a sense, it is given to you to be the caretakers. Now, in the past, because of negative definitions and negative belief systems, many humans on your planet have thought that this meant that you have domination over all the other life on your planet. This is not the case. In the old interpretation, in some of your ancient scriptures, where it says that mankind has dominion over the earth and all life on earth, the ancient term dominion in that sense meant caretaker, not overlord. So the idea is dominion is given to you to be the one to process and synergize and caretake and represent all the different forms of life on your planet and nurture and support and give life to all of these things along with them in a way that creates this holistic net to be amplified and magnified so that all life forms can pick up on the information they require to sustain themselves in the best possible way, the most beneficial possible way for all concerned. In a sense, you have the ability to actually become the frequency of the net itself, and thus, in any given situation or circumstance, connect into whatever kind of consciousness expression you need to, be it the trees, be it the animals, be it the rocks, by simply being sensitive enough to the fact that you are the synergizers to go within yourself and get more precise ability to tell the difference between the different frequencies that are expressed by the different forms of life, so that in honing in on those frequencies you can have the kinds of ongoing communication and exchange of information that is possible to have with all the different forms of life on your planet. You form your own nature social network on a certain resonant frequency that is itself representative of the combination of all the frequencies. Is this making some sense to you? Yes. All right. So the idea, again, is that, of course, everything expresses itself in a different way, a different modality. And it's about really tuning in and, in a sense, taking on the mantle of that modality and expressing it as strongly through your reflective aspects, your reflective nature as you possibly can, to strengthen and amplify and reinforce that modality for that form of life. So when you are learning to communicate with a dog, with a cat, with a bird, you are actually taking on the resonance, fine-tuning to that resonance, and reflecting it back in a way that actually starts a back and forth kind of energy beat. And in that energy beat, as it levels itself into that particular frequency, you then start to perceive communication in the form in which it is expressed from that animal, because you are expressing that aspect within yourself, because you contain all those frequencies that are representative of all the animals and all the trees and all the rocks and the sky and the sea and everything on your planet. So it's about becoming a very fine-tuned station, a very fine-tuned antenna, receiver, and transmitter, so that you can really start to perceive those different frequencies in a very fine-grained way and really lock into them much more strongly, so that you can amplify that vibration between yourself and the life form you are communicating with, and then start to really interpret and transceive the communication in the modality that it is expressing itself from, because you become like them. This is the secret of the shamans, in the sense of actually being able to tap into parallel realities in such a way that they actually represent themselves as the animal they are in communication with. This is the source of the idea of seeing shamans turn into birds, turn into jaguars, turn into various animals. It's not in a sense that any molecular rearrangement has happened. What is happening is that, like the sages that Willa has spoken of, they have the ability to understand their connection to parallel versions of themselves in parallel realities so strongly that they can actually represent themselves and bring in a representation from a parallel reality strongly enough that you actually perceive that parallel reality representation instead of the human form that was basically in the parallel reality that you inhabit. So they are presenting a reflective mirror so strongly that you think they have actually changed their shape. You follow me? But all you're getting is a reflection from a parallel reality, because the shaman is being a perfect mirror angled at just the correct angle to reflect that parallel reality expression of their consciousness from another parallel reality into your consciousness. So a shaman is a perfect mirror that operates at different angles, reflecting different realities to you. Do you understand? It is not about the idea of molecular change. That's not what shapeshifters do. They take advantage of this consciousness field in such a way as to extend beyond the consciousness field of what you consider to be your universe and go into the consciousness field of other universes, and therefore can reflect things and expressions of consciousness from those other parallel realities into the reality in which they originated. So this all comes down to the idea that you are ensconced in, embedded in, immersed in a titanic, infinite social network of energy webs at certain vibratory levels, and you can tap into these more consciously as you start to explore within yourself your caretaker nature to all of nature, and remind yourself, again, first and foremost, that you are not above nature, not below nature, not separate from nature, but are nature. So find your natural selves. This is why we suggest to you in many occasions that it's not about finding out how to be normal. It's about finding out how to be your natural self, because your natural self is tapped in, does understand these connections, and when you relax the idea of what you think you're supposed to be and actually allow yourself to be what you are as nature expressed you, you will find yourself being a part of nature, not separate from it, and these kinds of communications and your ability to tap into nature's social network, you will find will already be inherent within your skills, your talents, your abilities to perceive this more and more readily. Does this make sense? Yes. All right. So let us proceed in a natural way and open up to the idea of sharing at this time, if you wish. As you prepare, all right, I'll say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? All right. All right. If we understand your response, you are all woo. We thank you for the co-creation once again of this interaction. We would like to begin this transmission with the idea of navigating the splitting prism of parallel realities. Now, as we have said in other transmissions, what you are experiencing on your planet at this time is a juncture, a junction point, a pivot point, especially coming up in your year of 2020, which symbolically represents the idea not only of clear vision forward, but also the idea of 2020 hindsight. And in gathering together all the lessons you have learned, all the information that you need to move forward with clarity in that pivotal year and the years to follow. Even though you may think, as we have said, that you are all sharing one particular reality, you are not. You are creating your own version, your own simulation through agreements, telepathically connected agreements with each other to create what appears to be the same reality. But each of you is creating your own. And many of you now are beginning to realize, as your society continues forward, that there are many individuals who are choosing different expressions of reality that are not necessarily in alignment with the kind of experience that you prefer to have on your planet. Or again, more precisely, on your planets, because there are multiple versions of Earth simultaneously coexisting here. And the idea is that now the splitting prism has moved forward enough that there are starting to be, in between all of these different parallel realities, a kind of borderline, a kind of barrier. You can liken it to the idea, as we have said, of a glass wall. You can see through it to the other realities, to the people that are not necessarily choosing things that are vibrationally compatible with the kind of reality experience you prefer. But that doesn't mean that they can affect you, because they can no longer really reach you with their vibration, except by your choice to mirror or mimic what you're seeing on the other side of the glass. But there is no other effect than that. Your choice to believe that you must be affected by them is you creating that effect in your reality, your discrete parallel reality. So as you move forward, recognizing that each of you is in your own reality, literally, and that you can make more and more agreements with those that are more vibrationally compatible with what you prefer to, again, continue to generate simulations of these realities for yourselves that do harmonize with those that are vibrationally compatible with you and disharmonize or become more discoherent with those that are not vibrationally compatible with what you prefer. The split becomes wider and wider. The walls of glass become, in a sense, thicker and thicker and thicker. Now, the idea of navigating through what's happening in this splitting is to allow yourself the opportunity to not only follow the formula that we have given you that is representative of the instruction manual of how reality works, which is act on your passion to the best you can, no assumption, no insistence on the outcome, and remaining in a positive state, no matter how things look, in order to extract a beneficial effect. Along with that, there is another element that now becomes more crucial, more important as the days unfold, as the years unfold, going forward in your sense of time and space. We have discussed from time to time the difference in the language between your higher mind, which is non-physical, and your physical mind. The higher mind, being non-physical, has a language of energy vibration, resonance. Now, all things operate on resonance of energy, but it is from the higher mind purely an energetic transmission. And when your body receives this like an antenna, it translates, as we have said, this vibrational language from the higher mind as the physical sensation you call passion, excitement, creativity, love. But your response cannot only be in energy. It cannot only be in words. The language of physical reality is physical actions. And therefore, this is why it is so crucial to act on your passion, not just think about it, not only just meditate on it, not only just give off loving energy to everyone. All these things help. But the physical action seals the deal, completes the circuit, grounds the effect. And the physical acts you take that are in alignment with the reality you prefer, instead of just wishing or hoping that your reality will shift into more and more of a representation, the physical actions you take will actually start to crystallize that reality much, much more quickly, much more coherently for you. That's how you navigate through all of these splitting prisms, taking yourself by acting on your passion, steering that rudder, being the vibration of the reality you prefer to experience so you can navigate toward it more and more every day in every way. But along with that, it is crucial to really take the physical actions necessary to really home in on that reality, to demonstrate by your actions the reflection that you ultimately will see in that reality. So, for example, we have sometimes been asked questions such as, if I am in my reality and I see something happening that is what I don't prefer, should I help? Yes, because it is the action of being of assistance that belongs in the reality you prefer. That's one of the expressions of the reality that most of you, theoretically, would prefer. That when someone gives off a signal that they might require assistance, that you actually take the action of assisting them somehow. It isn't that, again, you have to expect a particular outcome from that, but it is the action itself, the offering itself, that makes all the difference. And whatever comes to fruition from that will again crystallize and solidify the reality of your preference. but the actions are key. We got another question recently about the idea of, if I'm in my reality and I'm walking along and I see a piece of trash on the ground, should I pick it up? Yes, if you don't prefer it to be in your reality. You have to demonstrate through your actions what this reality you prefer would actually be like, where people would automatically do those kinds of things. You have to be the first, foremost living example of the behaviors that belong in the realities you prefer. By being that physical example and demonstrating those behaviors, others will see that. Others who wish to align with the similar kinds of realities, create those kinds of realities for themselves, will see that, and they may realize that those are the kinds of behaviors that are representative of those kinds of realities, and you will have given them an opportunity to see, through you, someone in their preferred reality doing something that represents the kind of reality they prefer. So you become a living example to them, and an example and a solidifier and a crystallizer to yourself by actually undertaking those kinds of actions that are representative of the reality in the way you would also prefer to see others behaving. Getting a reflection of that kind of consciousness, of that kind of conscientiousness, of that kind of awareness, and the willingness to take action on it to demonstrate what that reality really looks like and what the people living in that reality would actually, naturally, automatically do. Is this making some sense? So the idea then is, as you go through life, as you act on your passion, best you can, as you let go of the insistence on what the outcome should look like, as you remain by choice in a positive state no matter what happens, so that you can derive the benefit from that circumstance, also put yourselves out there. Take the actions that are representative of that passion. Don't hesitate. Don't hold back. If you feel like you need to express yourself through writing, write. If you need to express yourself through painting, paint. If you need to express yourself through acting, act. In some way, shape, or form, express your creativity, express who you are through the physical actions on a daily basis, so that others may see through you as a living example what that reality looks like and what the citizens of that reality do. And it will start to really bleed through. It will start to rub off on others who are even minorly willing to navigate in that direction. So each of you becomes a crystallized nodal point, a magnetic nodal point that starts to attract more and more like-minded people, even if their vibration is not exactly aligned. You can act as a magnetic nodal point to, again, give them more opportunity to realize, oh, this looks more like the reality I prefer. I see the actions of these people here. That looks more like the reality I prefer. And so I myself will also take those actions so that they can see something similar in the reflection that I am to them. Don't hesitate. Remember, please remember, if you have a gift to give, that means there has to be someone waiting to receive it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be excited about having that gift, about expressing yourself that way. So please do not deprive others of the gift that they are waiting to receive from you. Let go. Open up. Take the actions every day, as best as you can, every moment that you can, on the things that give you joy. Don't just muse about them. Don't just wish. Don't just think. Don't just meditate. These are all wonderful states of being, but the action completes the circuit. It completes the cycle, and it allows the higher mind to know that you actually heard the message it sent you through passion, because you are speaking in the language of physical reality, and therefore you are creating a space by taking those actions that allow the higher mind to not only know you heard it, but that you're willing to handle more opportunities that it could send your way through passion of what it is that is representative of your true self. For if you do not act on the things it's already sent you, why should it send you anymore? It would be pointless. So the more you act, the more space you make for more opportunities to act on your excitement, to act on your passion. You create this cycle, and it expands and expands and expands. So again, even though there may be those that you see through the glass walls into another reality that are behaving vibrationally incompatible with what you prefer, at the very least, by being your true selves and taking these actions that are representative of the reality, the version of Earth you prefer, you are even giving them an opportunity, because they can see you too. You are at least giving them an opportunity to know there might be another choice they could make. There might be another path they could take. Not that they have to. This is not about insistence. It's about allowance. It's about demonstration to show that there are options. And in that way, with those actions and being a living example of that reality through your actions, do you solidify and crystallize for yourself the reality, the version of Earth that is truly more vibrationally compatible with the reflection that you would prefer to see. And bit by bit, you take steps more and more every day toward that reality, waiting a little bit to some degree for some others to catch up, but not to the point where it holds you back. Make sense? All right. Up to you to decide how this works for you, but take the actions that you can.
Say good day to you this day of your time. How are you all? Once again, we take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you, first of all, for creating this transmission with us this day of your time. Once again, each and every time, your civilization co-creates these transmissions with our civilization. We are afforded an opportunity to see and experience through each and every one of you that many more perspectives within creation, and this expands our understanding of the infinite. So we thank you for this gift. We would like to begin this transmission with the following idea that we will call negotiation and resolution. Now, many times in conversations on your planet, as we have observed your people, there will be opportunities over and over and over again that will call for what you call negotiation and resolution. In many cases, because of the portions of your consciousness that have been trained within you to be hidden, there will sometimes be agendas within you that you will not even necessarily consciously know about, so that when you go about the business of negotiating for what you believe is supposed to be the resolution, you may find yourself at odds with the individuals you are negotiating with, because you may be on one particular track, as you say, thinking that you are both going in the same direction, when in fact you are even sometimes heading in opposite directions, because you may not necessarily be aware of what your own hidden agendas are and what it is you actually think you're negotiating for, what kind of an outcome or resolution you think you're supposed to have, may be diametrically opposed to the belief systems and definitions and resolutions that the other individual or individuals believe they are supposed to have. Now, sometimes, of course, many of you know you have different agendas, but will, for one reason or another, again, usually because of emotional hidden agendas, insist on sticking to the kind of resolution you desire. In fact, many times demand, and will not necessarily accept that a resolution has been created unless, to put it simply, you get your way. The idea, however, is to understand that because many of these hidden agendas exist, and because many of these hidden agendas will color the way in which you go about creating a so-called resolution, you may find, of course, that you will not come to a resolution because of that coloration. The idea in all negotiations, in all desire for resolution, is to really focus on the idea of resolution itself as a concept before you focus on the idea of exactly how specifically such a resolution must be accomplished. In other words, if you make not your own agenda the priority, but the idea of coming to a resolution at all the priority, that is your primary concern, that you do, in fact, come to some kind of resolution, no matter how you get there, then by allowing the idea, the concept, the desire for resolution itself to be primary, you can allow the concept of resolution to guide the methodologies and guide the details about how you come to the resolution, rather than making the resolution subservient and, in a sense, secondary to the idea of what you think you're supposed to get out of it. When you focus on the idea that the primary reason for being in the negotiation is to come to a resolution somehow, that the resolution is paramount, then that desire, that focus, will help you search for more ways to achieve a resolution than you might otherwise have been willing to look at, because you may have been focused on your own hidden agenda, which in many cases, by definition, would be relatively limited as far as all the different ways that a resolution could be created. So focus on the resolution itself as the main goal of any negotiation. That coming to a resolution is the primary agenda, regardless of how you get there. And you will find yourself with that in mind, first of all, having a common point with the other individual. If you can both agree that coming to a resolution is more important exactly than how you get there, you're already in agreement on something. And that is a good beginning to any negotiation and any resolution. We thank you for allowing us to reflect this concept to you at this time and to share with you our perspective on this particular matter. Again, it is always up to you as to whether or not to pay attention and or apply this information. We are only sharing with you what works for our civilization and leaving it up to you to decide what works for you. But I do, from experience in our world, know that this will aid and assist and accelerate any and all negotiations and resolutions that you may actually desire to undertake. If you will, but be willing to apply this methodology and this principle and this priority in that fashion. Once again, we thank you, and in return for the gift that you are giving our civilization in allowing us to communicate with you through this window in this way at this time, I ask in return, in what way may I and my civilization now be of service to you?